So maybe you can let me know if the volume is working. That would be really great. And I'm hoping that lots more people will come on, so this can be an interactive show. This series is designed to talk about leadership, to explore it in a variety of different aspects, and look at it from different points of view. And I don't want it to be me providing you with a bunch of information for an hour long. I need this to be an interactive show. I want to get you people asking questions. We'll eventually have guests on the show as well, leaders from different kinds of situations, different organizations, and we'll get them to share their best practices with you, some of the things that work for them in terms of making them good leaders, and some of the lessons that they've learned along the way. We've all learned lessons about leadership, good and bad, and I think it's important to share those. So the show is for aspiring leaders and current leaders. And essentially it's aimed at organizational leaders. But folks, really, when you think about leadership, everyone, in my opinion, is a leader. Whether you're actually in a leadership role right now in an organization or in a volunteer situation, church group, maybe a leader in your family, the one thing that you do lead that a lot of people forget about is you lead your own lives. So you are the leader in that situation, and the decisions that you make about your life will determine the quality of that life. All right. So we have Victor saying that it's working as it should. Thanks, Victor. Appreciate that. And Joy Andrews from Victoria. Welcome, Joy. Good to have you here from the University of Victoria. I imagine there's not too many things going on in the university right now, but I have no idea. But thanks for showing up. If you, when you do come on, please post your comments about some of the things that we're going to talk about, and stay with us till the very end, because I do have a couple of gifts that I'm going to share with you, and I'm going to share those gifts with the 2 best comments, and I'm going to be the only sole judge for those comments. I'm going to decide whether or not they're good. And if they're good enough, I'm going to share gifts with 2 separate people. So Leadership 2020 is a series. This is episode 1 called Finding Your Fire. And today what I want to do is I want to explore a little bit about what that means. What does finding your fire mean to you? How does one find one's fire if they don't have it? And once one finds their fire, how do you actually maintain it? How do you keep it burning? Probably we've all been in situations where maybe we've had an idea or we got really excited about something, and that passion, that fire was there. People in your circles, they would understand, see that passion, and then something happens along the way. Maybe it's time, maybe it's your head saying, maybe this isn't really a good idea after all, but something happens to change that passion, to change the fire, to squelch it. And so we want to explore today a little bit about how to keep that fire going, because if you can't keep it going, it's going to be hard to inspire other people. And that's another thing that we want to do here in this show, is learn how to inspire others, how to spark their fire. If you're a leader in an organization or wherever else, part of your job is to turn other people on and get them to be passionate about what they're doing. University of Victoria. The entire university is here. Jeremy, welcome. What's going on at University of Victoria today? Awesome. Good to have you guys here. Appreciate that. So, I want to first say that this show is being brought to you by my company, which is Foothills Youth and Family Services Incorporated, and would love for you to like my Leadership 2020 page on Facebook, and also would be great if you could subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm new to this live streaming game, and the reason for it, just want to share this little story, is because, oh, look who's here, Paula. Hey, Paula. Hi back. Paula, career development leader for many, many years and a friend of mine. Good to see you, Paula. So I forgot what I was talking about. This is going to be the issue about looking at these comments during the show. So I was talking about live streaming. So my first attempt at this, and the reason I'm doing this is because of COVID-19. Most of you will know, or the ones who are here will know, that I'm a corporate trainer and a speaker, and there's no audiences to speak to or train right now that are live. So I took it upon myself to learn a new skill. So I've kind of thrown myself into this live streaming game, and I'm currently using a platform called Ecamm, which some of you may or may not be familiar with, and learning how to do this so I can become an expert online trainer, presenter, show host, which is what I want to do. So this is the first attempt at that. I'm also, right now as we speak, I'm registered in the Ecamm Live Academy. There's 200 of us who are taking a 2-week course to learn how to use this platform better. So in the next couple of weeks, I'm sure that you'll see a huge improvement in the show. But any comments around the presentation would also be helpful. How's the audio sounding? How's the video look? And things like that. That would be all be great. All right. So let's get to it. Finding your fire. So I think it's important. I'm going to ask you that question again, and feel free to answer in the comments. What does that mean to you? What does finding your fire mean to you? So maybe put an answer in the comments section. I developed a little acronym around fire, and I want to share that acronym for you. So for me, the F, a good word for the F is fearless. I think leaders have to be fearless, and I think some leaders often lead through fear. And what I mean by that is that fear sometimes overcomes leaders, especially in this time, for example, when you look at COVID-19 and all the impacts it's had on organizations in one way, shape, or another. Some leaders, well, what leader has ever been through a pandemic like this before? So it's all brand new. So the decisions that you make perhaps are new or different decisions, or made in a different way, or made from a different perspective, a different point of view. So I think it's really important to be aware of how you're making these decisions during difficult times like this. And sometimes fear drives us to make decisions. And when we do that, when we make those decisions out of fear, sometimes we don't make the right decisions. Now I want you to think about that for a second, because it's often fear that forces us to make a decision. So COVID-19 pandemic happens. We have to make decisions now about our organizations. But sometimes we make them out of fear, and they could be the wrong decisions. I've learned that from my experience in my life many, many times. Making a decision when I'm afraid of something, as opposed to being excited about something or knowledgeable about something, makes a huge difference. Joy says, the spark that keeps you going through challenges. I love that, Joy. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. If you think of the great leaders that you know in your life, they're probably the ones that have been able to overcome any kind of obstacle. It doesn't really matter what the obstacle is, but they're able to overcome it. Paula says sometimes fear prevents us from making decisions too. Absolutely. So if you're stuck in that mindset of, I'm afraid, what do I do next? I'm afraid to make a decision. And so you hold back, you don't make it, thinking maybe that whatever's occurring for you will just go away. And maybe it does in the short term, right? But doesn't it keep coming back over and over and over again during the long term? Absolutely it does. Paula says, fire, what sparks you to take action? Absolutely. And just to add to that, Paula, for me, the fire that I have, it just keeps burning. And I do things to keep that burning. And it doesn't just spark me to take action. It just sparks me to just keep going. Whether I'm taking action or just being present in my everyday life from moment to moment as best that I can. And that's that fire that I have about life, the passion I have about life, and the passion I have about what I do professionally. And I happen to know, Paula, that you have that same kind of passion, both personally and professionally, because you do crazy things. You're just a crazy woman. So F is fearless, and I want to share something around fear for me that changed the way I feel that I'm a leader. It changed me as a person, but it certainly changed me as a leader. So I had a fear of heights for my entire life. So much so that it was difficult for me to even get up on a ladder when I was sort of in my teens. And I didn't really know I had this fear of heights until I tried to get up on a ladder and go to the top of it. I couldn't do it. I've never had a fear of flying. I've been flying in airplanes since I was 8 years old, so that had never been an issue. But I had this fear of heights. And as I got older, I realized that the fear became more real. So for example, I'm an avid swimmer, and when I started swimming in indoor pools, the different levels of diving boards, I could do the 3-foot one really easily. I could never do the 10-foot one. I just couldn't do it. So there I was trying to figure out, well, how do I overcome this fear? And at some point in my life, and I can't tell you when, I decided to take those steps to do it. So I think it was maybe when I was early on in my marriage, and I had a house, and my wife said I had to get on the roof to fix something. So I climbed up on a ladder, and I got up on the roof, and I fixed it. It turned out I also fell off the roof on a ladder, and that didn't help much. But just like, if you fall off a horse, the old saying, get right back on it and ride it. That's what I did with the ladder. So I sort of overcame my fear of ladders. Oh, here's Matthew, my nephew is here, another Cutler. Good to see you, Matthew. Yes, there will be will be recorded, and you'll be able to see it absolutely as many times as you want. You can watch it with your family and have popcorn. So then the next step around this, I'm going to fast forward many years. So the next step around this was about 5 or 6 years ago when I was having a birthday. And I was on Facebook, and a friend of mine who is a glider pilot said, "Hey, what are you doing today?" And I said, "I don't know. It's my birthday. I'm going to celebrate." And he said, "Why don't you come down here?" I lived in outside of Pincher Creek down in Twin Butte, and he was flying his glider plane at the Cowley glider strip, which was maybe a half hour away, 45 minutes away. He said, "Why don't you come down and I'll take you up in the glider?" And I thought about that for a moment. My initial reaction was, no way. No effing way I was going to do that. And then I said, hey, this is a way to continue stepping into my fear and getting over this fear of heights. So I did it. I actually went up in a glider plane, 10,000 feet. And then I realized, actually, when I got there, that gliders don't have engines. So I wasn't afraid of flying up in a plane. Flying up in a glider without an engine was a bit of a different situation for me. So I pushed myself to go up, and I did it. And it was an incredible experience, and I couldn't thank my friend enough, my friend Mitch. And I ended up doing it, and I felt really good about that. But I still wasn't over my sense of fear after that. There was still something there. So 4 years ago, 3 years ago now, 4 years ago, I can't remember, I decided I was going to jump out of a plane. I decided I was going to get this done one way or the other. And I did. I took my wife and I took her 2 stepsons, and we all jumped out of a plane in Olds, Alberta. And that was even a more incredible experience than the glider. And I believe now that I'm fully over my fear of height. Now, I tell this story because it has everything to do with leadership for me. So what it did was it changed me as a person, because it told me, and it's not the first time this has happened, but it told me that if I can overcome that, I can really overcome everything. And so whatever problem gets thrown at me as a leader, I feel I can handle it. I feel I can deal with it in some way, shape, or form. And I also use that story to inspire other people who have fears, not necessarily of height, but other fears, that you can actually get over your fear if you step into it. So that's why the F is fearless in the acronym FIRE. What are your fears? What have you overcome? I know some of you personally, and I know some of you have overcome some incredible fears. Why don't you comment about those so that other people can see? What have you overcome your fear, and how has that changed your leadership style if you're in a leadership position, or how has that changed your life personally? So I'm going to move on to the I while you're thinking about that. The I in FIRE stands for inquisitive. And for me, this is one of the most important things about leadership that I think is lacking. I think once people get to the top, whatever the top is, it could be team leader, it could be team manager, it could be supervisor of a certain number of people, it could be CEO of a huge organization. People forget, or choose not to, and depending on who the person is, I suppose, they forget to check in with their people, develop relationships with their people. And the way to do that, in my opinion, the best way to do that is to be curious about those people, to be inquisitive, to ask questions. I used to be a therapist, youth and family therapist, And asking questions was my strongest point. I needed to find out more about these people. It was not about giving advice. I don't even believe in doing that. It was about finding out who these people were, developing relationships with them, sharing appropriate information when it was good to do that. And that's what I think made people come back, that they wanted to be with me because I was curious about them. And that curiosity has never left me. Always very curious about doing that. Victor, yeah, Victor Lethbridge, a friend of mine from down these parts. Fear of motivational speaking, fear of speaking, and now he's a motivational speaker. He's also an incredible musician, music producer, performer, author of children's books. Got all kinds of different talent, and I've seen Victor speak, and he's inspiring. And the reason he's inspiring is because he speaks from the heart. So he's taken that fear and somehow changed it into making a living, which is part of what he does, which is pretty cool. Very cool, Victor. So, and asking questions, I think asking really good questions is important too. It's those open kinds of questions, those questions that are not going to put people on the defensive. And I think as a leader, one of the mistakes that we make, at least in my experience in observing leaders, is when we ask questions, we're not necessarily prepared for all the answers. And sometimes we ask for feedback, we get the feedback, and we don't take it. So what's the point of asking for it in the first place? Those are the kinds of things that disengage people. When you ask questions, ask for information, ask for help, and then don't use the answers to your advantage. That disengages rather than engages, and that creates issues for leadership. Victor, I want to read this. This is pretty cool. We all have gifts and talents. When you find yours, it's empowering, confidence building, and drives you to move forward and share yourself with the world. Very cool. Yeah, I totally agree with that. That confidence, because you're right, Victor. I think we all have those gifts, and sometimes we're not in the right environment where people bring those gifts out in us. And sometimes in organizations, when things get tough, it's hard to manifest those gifts. But it's that confidence, it's that facing your fear, taking risks, stepping out of your comfort zone, that whole confidence factor. And once you have that in one area, you can transform any other area of your life by doing that. So very cool. And I think part of what's in there is in the R, the acronym in FIRE too. So the R is for resilience. Have you known leaders that aren't resilient, great leaders that aren't resilient? You have to be. You have to take the punches, and you have to keep getting up, keep getting up, keep getting up, and keep going forward. Excuse me. And that's where the passion is. That's where the fire, that's what the fire drives me. I can't tell you how many times, I've been beaten down in my life in one way, shape, or another, and I just keep getting up. I don't know where I got that from, to be honest with you. I can't think of a role model in my life when I was growing up that had that. Maybe it was innate. I don't know. Maybe it was just part of me, but that's the way I am. So, use this as an example right here, this live streaming. So last week was supposed to be this episode, and I spent weeks, learning how to use this stuff, making tests, did the episode, no sound, no audio. So I was, excuse me. I was really pissed off, actually, is what I was, because of all the work that I put into it. And then I said, wait a minute, this is what happens to leaders. This is what happens, shit happens, and then you have to do something about it. So I just got back in the drawing board, talked to a couple people that I knew, found out what I had done wrong, and apparently now the audio is working, which is great. And I'll keep learning as I go along. And I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to quit until I do this for a while, and it either is going to work or it isn't going to work for me, but that's just the way I am. So it's that confidence to keep on pushing that helps me as a leader, and I think it inspires other people as well. So that's the resilience factor in FIRE. The E part of the acronym, I attach the word enlightening to. And what I mean by that is I think leaders have to enlighten, leaders have to inspire, leaders have to share their gifts, as Victor says, in a way that other people want to do the same. So you're all aware of leaders who kind of have their thumb down on people, and they suppress people. They suppress ideas. They suppress creativity. They suppress all kinds of things. I mean, think of us, as little kids. We were all incredibly creative and curious and did all kinds of things to sort of discover the world in our own ways. And what stops that? Those bigger, taller human beings that tell us, don't say that, don't do this there, don't say that here. And eventually we get kind of squashed into the person that we have sort of developed over time. And that comes from our environment, I think. So whether it's family, school, friends, jobs, all those things contribute to constricting us as human beings. And I think we have to fight to break out of those constrictions. That's where fire comes in. That's where facing your fear comes in, taking risks. A lot of people don't take risks anymore. They're very comfortable in what they're doing, whether they're happy or not. And folks, there's a statistic in North America that suggests that about 50% of adults are not really happy with their work. They wake up every day not liking what they do. I don't know if you're one of those 50% or not. I'm not. I've actually never been that way. I've liked any job that I've had, and I'm not sure why that is either, but I have. But a lot of people don't like their work, and they're not going to change for a variety of reasons. And they'll come up with a whole list of them. There'll be hundreds of them. I'm not going to change because there are no other jobs out there. What else can I do? I'm 60 years old. Blah, 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 blah. Reason, excuse, one after the other. And they will continue to be who they are for the rest of their lives, good or bad. So I think it's a leader's responsibility to inspire and enlighten those. Hold up the mirror to the people that you lead to show them who they are or how they're being perceived by other people. I'm very fortunate in my life. I have lots of people who are my mirror. My wife in particular always mirrors back to me what she sees me doing in terms of my behavior. And I can accept what she sees or not. I'm fortunate enough to belong in a men's organization. Same thing. I can choose to listen to those men who give me that honest feedback or not, and I do choose to listen to them. And so I'm very fortunate to have all these people in my life who mirror back my behavior to me, and I get to choose whether or not I want to become a better man and use that behavior, become a better leader, better person, better human being. A couple of other comments here. So Paula said, fear of being vulnerable and letting others get to know me. Yeah. That's a great point, Paula. A lot of people, in my experience, are afraid to make mistakes or appear that they made a mistake. So they make a decision, doesn't work out, and they're just afraid to say, I blew it. I'm sorry. That was the wrong decision, because that shows vulnerability. And some people think that if you show vulnerability, you show weakness. I'm hoping that most people believe that vulnerability is not weakness. Vulnerability is strength. Asking for help is strength. And in fact, what I've learned on men's team, just to give you a brief thing about men's team, we meet once a week, usually a team of 8 to 12 men, that kind of a thing. We often meet around a fire, although these days we're meeting on Zoom. And the purpose of the men's group is to take off our masks, share who we are as honestly, openly, and vulnerably as possible, and get feedback about how we come across to the world and how we come across to our partners, how we come across in business, how we take care of our bodies and our personal health. And that way of being allows me to see that others want to know who I am, and they don't think that by exposing myself in that way, shape, or form that I'm being weak somehow. And you know, men in particular, I'm going to make this a gender thing here for a minute, but men in particular are sort of grown up, at least in my circle of men, you know, that we're supposed to be the providers, the man of the family, the leader of the family, if you will. And that puts pressure, you know, on men. And a lot of men have that pressure, so they don't want to show their vulnerability. They don't want to cry in public. They don't want to show who they are. And I think it's really, really important that we do. So thanks for bringing that up, Paula. Joy is saying here, there's always something to like in one's work. And maybe that's why I've always liked my jobs, Joy. And I think my dad had a lot to do with it, too. He told me when I was a kid, he said, you know, whatever you do, son, doesn't matter what you do, just do it really well. Do it to the best of your ability. And I think I took that on. So I've had some lousy jobs, as we've all had, I'm sure. And I always found something to like about the job, for sure. In fact, I remember one employer that I was working with in Pincher Creek, he made a cool statement. He was talking about this kind of a thing that, you know, he hires a lot of high school kids, for example, and a lot of them maybe don't like to sweep floors or clean the bathroom. He said, but everybody likes to socialize with coworkers. And he said, if you can't find anything to like about the job now, at least try and like who you're working with. Try and become a part of the team. Try and make the place a good place to be, a good, fun place to come to work, and a happy place for your customers to be. And I thought that was pretty cool. And I think that he was getting at that same point that you were making, Joy. Jeremy, building on Paula's point, being able to be vulnerable is very useful and can be challenging for doing new things, initiatives, and work. Absolutely. Yeah, great point, Jeremy. You know, a lot of people who get who are asked to do something new or just want to do something new, that being vulnerable, that openness. Hey, you know, I'm brand new at this. I don't know what I'm doing. Help me. Please help me. There's nothing wrong with that. And who doesn't like to be asked for help? I bet if I went to every one of you, and being a therapist, an ex-therapist, I get this. You know, how many times have I gone to people and say, you know, asked for help, and they're more than willing to help me. Anyone I've ever asked for help will actually help me. I can't think of anyone that has sort of turned me down if I needed, you know, some time to talk or something like that. But to get them to go for help sometimes is really, really difficult, isn't it? So think about that. Why would leaders, you know, one of your staff comes to you for help and you provide that help to them gladly, usually, why won't you as a leader ask for help when you need it? Think about that. I think that's really important. Hey, Charlene, welcome. Good to see you. So Charlene is saying vulnerability is the agreement that we are collectively human, and that will make relationships and friendships grow and flourish faster than anything. That's beautifully said, Charlene. So are you saying that leaders should be human? I believe that you are. And I think that humanness, that just being who you are, can be the most effective way to lead other people. They're not, I don't think they may be looking for superheroes, which is why, you know, we go to movies and read books and things like that. People, you know, things to aspire to that are perhaps great, but really it's that human factor. You know, you look at some of those superhero movies, they make mistakes too, don't they? And when they open up in terms of their relationships with people, that's, I think, the magic moments in the movies where we really connect with those characters because they are human. Very cool. So there you have, that's the FIRE acronym, the F-I-R-E. So fearless for the F, inquisitive for the I, resilience for the R, and enlightening for the E. I think if we followed those 4 characteristics as best we can, that we would be much better leaders for sure. So just want to point out, if anybody else is here and just joined in, thank you for coming. This is Leadership 2020. I'm your host, Herky Cutler. This is our very first episode called Finding Your Fire, and we're talking about the acronym that I gave to FIRE, the 4 letters. And now we're going to move into some other questions around how to find your fire and things like that. Make some comments if you're here. Tell me where you're from. Ask some questions if you have any about what's going on in your organization that you might be having difficulty with. We have some leaders online here right now. We can all help each other become better at this by sharing some of the issues we might be having at work or in other parts of our life and getting some feedback. We can make this a fire, just like my men's team right here. Stay to the end because I'm going to offer 2 special gifts. In the end is another half an hour. I'm going to offer 2 gifts for the best comments. We've had some really good comments so far, and I'm just going to choose the best 2 because I'm going to be the only judge around that. And again, this show is brought to you by my company, Foothills Youth and Family Services Incorporated. Feel free to like my Facebook page, Leadership 2020, hosted by Herky Cutler. And it'd be great if you subscribe to my YouTube channel at some point, because I'm trying to build that up as well. It's part of what we need to do here as live streamers. I love calling myself that. That's pretty cool. So the next thing I want to deal with is how to find your fire. So I'm going to ask the people who are online right now, how did you find your fire? Or how do you think people find their fire? How does that happen? I'm not sure how it actually happened for me, except it did come, I think, through a professional experience. I'm going to share that story relatively quickly. So I was a terrible high school student, hated every day of school, actually. And as a result, I couldn't go to university when I graduated from high school because I didn't have the marks. I graduated with a 53%. Thank you so much. And I couldn't go to university, so I went to work. And as Joy was mentioning, I just liked every aspect of work that I could. And so I ended up doing a bunch of odd jobs, and one of those jobs brought me out west from Montreal, where I was born, and it was leasing commercial real estate. And I'd never done this before, and it was for my ex-brother-in-law. And you know, he was building little shopping centers, and he brought me out to Calgary to try and lease the space in these shopping centers for him. And I didn't know what the heck I was doing, but I kind of learned things along the way. And I was wearing 3-piece suits and taking, bankers out for lunches and buying them alcohol and trying to get them to lease space in these shopping centers. And I did it for a year, and I couldn't lease one spot in any of these shopping centers. And I don't know why. And then one day, near the end of that year, I'm talking to this guy from a place that still exists in Calgary called the Vocational Rehabilitation Institute, Vocational Rehab and Rehabilitation Institute, or whatever. And I'm giving him my spiel about opening up another bottle depot. These folks worked with mentally and physically handicapped people, and they still do run the bottle depots in Calgary. And I was trying to get this guy to open up another bottle depot. And at the end of my 45-minute spiel, he looks at me and he says, "Herky, you're the worst real estate salesman I've ever met." And I'm going, "Oh, well, thank you. Why do you think that?" He said, "Because you don't have the killer instinct. You're too nice a guy." So to make this long story short, I said, "So if you don't think I should be doing this, what do you think I should be doing?" And he said, "You should be working with people." And he took me on a tour of this institute that he worked at, and I was absolutely blown away with what these people were doing. They were, serving meals for 400 people every day in the cafeteria. They were doing piecework that a lot of people wouldn't do and other kinds of jobs. And I said, "How do you get involved in something like this?" So he told me about a place called William Roper Hull Home, which also still exists in Calgary today. And it's a place where they work with emotionally disturbed youth. And in those days, you didn't have to have a degree or diploma or anything like that. If they thought you had some kind of affinity to working with people, they would put you on a training program. They would hire you. So I went for an interview, got the job, the 6-week training program. And within 3 weeks, they were sold on me and I was sold on them. And that changed my life. That's where my fire started in terms of helping people, serving people. And that I was 22, I think. And that fire has kept burning, not just for youth, but for serving people for all of those years and still continues today. So that's how I got mine. Let's see what comes up with here. Charlene. Oh, wait a sec. Okay, so Joy says she found her fire through experience, trying things. Absolutely. So there I was, trying this new thing, working with at-risk kids, and I absolutely loved it. I was blown away by it. Paula says, I think we often stumble into our fire. We might have an experience, participate in something, and hear a story that gets us excited. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Charlene says it's a process, but you need to get to the root of what genuinely makes you happy and brings you joy. Cast off all the expectations of others and the masks we hide behind until you can find that spark that makes you want to jump. That is really cool, Charlene. It brings up a thought around being a high school guidance counselor. By the way, the guy who hated school every day became a teacher. The reason I became a teacher was because I thought I could do a way better job than my teachers did. And I eventually became a guidance counselor. And so I would deal with parents who wanted their kids to be certain things. And they wanted their kids to be certain things, not necessarily out of selfish reasons, how sometimes we want to live, through our children in that way, shape, or form. They wanted the best for their kids. They wanted their kids to be as happy as possible, but a lot of parents couldn't see that you could be happy washing windows in your life if that's what you chose to do, and that's where your fire was. That's what your spark was, to make the windows as clean as possible. I know a man who installs windows. That's all he does. His company installs windows in high-rise buildings. That's his specialty, and he absolutely loves putting in these incredible windows on 50-floor buildings and watch those windows sparkle so the employees can see out into this whatever beautiful view they have from that height. That's his love. That's his passion. He loves that. And who knows if his parents would have been happy with him, being a window installer. I have no idea. But as a guidance counselor, I came across this all the time. I want my kid to be a doctor or a lawyer or whatever. And if the kid wanted to be a truck driver, for some parents that wasn't a cool thing. So Charlene is saying, that we have to get away from those expectations that others have of us. And sometimes that pull is really strong, especially if it's family, right? Parents, loved ones, husband or wife, partner in that way. I don't really know if I don't really want to support you doing that. But if you really want to do it, you got to go for it. So thanks for that comment. Charlene also says, makes you want to jump out of bed, meet the day, and make the world a better place. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's what I get out of bed for every single morning. And like I said, there's a lot of us in North America that don't like that. They drag themselves out of bed. They can't stand it. Thanks for that comment, Charlene. Glad that you found that work. Appreciate that. You have too. So there you go. Jeremy. Finding oneself in a state of flow, engage in the moment, even briefly, in work and or outside of work, I found to help in finding fire, and I'm making a positive impact with clients. Yeah. So that whole notion about whatever the fire is within you, how does it manifest in your life? So I suppose, if you're working with whatever clients and those clients are not being successful in whatever way, shape, or form, that could contribute to putting out your fire. I'm hoping that you just keep on going, keep on becoming better at what you do so that you can enlighten and inspire those clients to get where they need to go, whatever service it is that you're providing. But yeah, it's the other side of the coin. It's, what are the results of our labor? I remember as a teacher, you often don't see the results right there and then. In fact, sometimes you never see the results from a particular kid. And 15 years later, something you said or did in that classroom inspired that kid to do whatever it is he or she ended up doing. And how cool is that? But you may never know. And so sometimes we actually have to get this mindset that, I have this mindset that whatever I do, I'm going to have an impact on someone in some way, shape, or form. A positive impact. Sometimes I have negative ones for sure. I get that. But I'm always believe that when I do a training session or play a song for somebody or whatever it is that I do, that there's going to be some kind of positive impact. But I just believe that. Whether it always happens, I don't know. And sometimes I will never know, but I just believe it. And that makes me keep going. Victor I've been blessed to have wonderful parents, and I got married to a very entrepreneurial woman, and she nudged me in new and challenging directions. I've totally repurposed my life. That you have, my friend, that you have, and in such amazing ways. It's truly an inspiration for me to have you in my life. Um, Victor's parents are wonderful people, and musicians as well. I believe, Victor, that's probably where you got your musical ability from, and developed your own style and your own expertise around that as well. And yeah, so that environment that we have is so crucial. And when you know that, I know Victor has kids, and writes books for kids, and I know when you know that your environment is so crucial, it makes you want to create whatever kind of special environment you can. And as leaders, we need to do that. We have to create that culture in the organizations that we work with, a culture that manifests this kind of feeling, fire, finding one's fire. And we're passionate about what we do because we have that fire. And I think I want everybody to have that fire, everyone, so that they can jump out of bed, like Charlene said. So how do you find it? Some people have mentioned that you come across it from the things you experience. It may just happen. Maybe you saw a movie that inspired you, read a book, talked to somebody. We talk about speakers. I'm a speaker, and the fear of public speaking, the impact, the ability for someone to inspire someone through their words. I've met people, listen to them talk for 5 minutes, and they've changed my life because of what they've said and how they said it and who they are, how that message comes across from them. And I've met other people who I can listen to talk for hours and hours and hours, and they wouldn't change a thing because there's something missing there. And I think what's missing is the fire, the passion, the belief in what you're saying, what you're doing, and the willingness to share that gift with other people. So we take risks. That's how I found, when my brother-in-law called me to come out to Calgary to do this real estate thing, I didn't know idea what it was going to be like. So I took that risk, and that risk led to meeting that guy that changed my whole life for the rest of my life in terms of working with young people and also working with people who needed help. Always expanding my comfort zone. Again, I know a couple of you here are doing that all the time, always learning new things. If you heard Paula's story about what she's done in her personal life, it's incredible what she's been able to do by taking her. Well, I don't want to say anything that you want to share, Paula, but you can share it yourself if you want. But she's just totally turned her personal life around, her personal being around, in such a way that has given her such great confidence, and that inspires all of us who are in her life. It's a very cool thing to see. So the other thing around fire that I want to talk about here that's important, I think, is, to me, fire is about transformation. And my wife, Risa, Risa is a very spiritual woman, and she holds fire ceremonies here at our place. Not necessarily every month, but every once in a while we have a fire ceremony. And there are reasons for having this particular fire ceremony. And one of the reasons is to really think about what are the things in your life that are no longer serving you. And the way we do this is we find a branch, a small branch. We take the branch and we blow into one end of the branch, and we're blowing in 3 things that no longer serve us in our life. And it could be whatever. It could be some resentment that you're holding about a particular person, family member. It could be fear of something. It could be whatever. And then on the other end of the branch, we blow in 3 things that we want more of or want in our life. And usually I'm blowing things in like gratitude into that part of the branch. And so we blow these into the branch, and then we drop the branch into the fire and wait for the fire to start consuming the branch, transforming it. And when it does, the smoke from that branch, we take that smoke and we smudge ourselves with that smoke in different parts of our body. And I believe that ceremony for me is very transformational. I think that's what fire does. Man has known this for eons, ever since the beginning, ever since the invention of fire. So I see fire as transforming. And I see the fire in my belly as transforming, not only for myself as a person, but for the individuals that I'm involved with and for the world. Lord knows this is an incredible world that we live in so many ways, and it also needs a lot of help. It needs our help, it needs leaders to step up and help. And we've seen around the world through this COVID-19 what kind of leadership works and what kind of leadership doesn't work. And we'll talk more about those kinds of things in future episodes. So those are some ways to finding your fire, taking risks, listening to I listen to my heart. I've learned to listen to my heart. You know, men are in their heads a lot. I get that. And, you know, on my men's team, we talk about that a lot. In fact, one part of our men's meeting is to do some activity to get us out of our heads, because men spend a lot of time in their heads. And, you know, if you're a woman and you're dealing with a man who's in his head a lot, you know what that feels like. And you know how frustrating that is when they can't get to their heart, they can't get to their emotion. It's so difficult. And so I think it's really important to make decisions, you know, from my heart as well as my head. So yeah, I have to think about things, and I have to decide what's right and what's wrong, what's best, what's not for the situation at that moment in time. But I want my heart to play a part of it. There's people involved in any decision that I make, even if it's only me, because I'm in lots of people's lives, and what happens to me happens to the people in my life. So it's important to use my heart as well. Yeah, cheap source of therapy. Charlene is saying. I could watch fire for hours. Absolutely, I totally agree with you. I love it. So there's some ways to find your fire. How do you keep it? So how do you folks keep your fire burning? Maybe make some comments around that. So here's how I keep fire. I try and take care of my body. I'm no good to anybody if I'm not healthy. And so, you know, I'm blessed that I'm able to eat fairly well. I do, when COVID-19 isn't here, I do travel a lot. So unfortunately, I do eat more junky type foods when I'm traveling than when I'm not. But for the most part, I eat really well. I try and exercise regularly. I practice mindfulness. You know, I'm always, if I'm doing yoga stretches or something like that, just paying really close attention to what's going on in my body, what's going on outside of my body in terms of the sounds, the smells. It's being in the present moment. It's being in that conscious moment. Leaders can get wrapped up. Excuse me. Leaders can get really wrapped up into what went on in the past and worrying about the future instead of thinking about what's going on right in that moment. Not just leaders, all of us. In our relationships, in our family work, we don't, I believe, my experience is we don't spend enough time in that present moment. We're always thinking about the past, worrying about the future. And so that mindfulness is a way for me to stay present. And when I stay present, that allows me to continue to keep that passion that I have for the things that I'm doing. Feeding my soul. So I'm fortunate enough that I play music, songwriter, and music feeds my soul. Not just playing it, but listening to it. Nature feeds my soul. So I'm always in nature, always walking, hiking, riding my bike. I live in High River now. I lived down near Waterton Lakes National Park, which is a beautiful area. And I gave up the mountains, and I love walking around and riding my bike around High River because there's some really pretty places. I love the river. I love the walk along the river, the path along the river. And nature is really important to me, so that feeds my soul. Those are the things that allow me to keep my fire burning. And then the last part for today is really, how do you light that spark and fire? Jill Clapp is on. Jill, how are you, Jill Clapp? Say hi. I miss you too. It's been a long time since I've seen you, my dear. So how do you light the spark in other people? And I'll let you make some comments around that. How do you inspire others? How do you you know, get them to burn? We all come across people who are kind of like, they're sort of monotonic in some way, shape, or form. They don't have a lot of spring to their step. They don't have a lot of fire. How do we change that? How do we motivate those people to do what makes them happy? And I think the best thing that we can do as a leader is bring hope. Hope is the number one thing that's going to keep this world going. If with all the problems that are going on in the world, if we don't have any hope, then we're nowhere. And I have eternal hope. I'm an optimist to the nth degree that we'll get through COVID, that we'll get through whatever it is that we have to get through to the other side to keep this world as beautiful as it is. And hope, I think, inspires other people. So when you're in a leadership position in an organization, it's one thing to be vulnerable and say, things aren't going well and I'm not sure what to do next. I need some help. That's not giving up. That's not saying you don't have any hope. That's just being honest. And I think being authentic and honest is a huge part of leadership. We'll talk about that in a whole other series. Oh, that's a good one, Joyce. So Joyce says, by noticing the fire that they exhibit. So yeah, excellent. Sometimes we need to put a little oil, which is what my wife does on our fire cinnamon. She puts a little special oil onto the flame if it's not burning that bright at that moment in time for what she wants to do with it. She puts a little oil to bring that flame up. And we need to do that with our people. So when somebody comes to you with a spark of an idea, we need to fan that flame, not push it out with our thumbs and, oh, we've done that before, that'll never work. So that's a really great point. Thank you. And Jeremy is saying, really listening to people. You know how you feel when something's on your mind or you want to share something and somebody actually is willing to listen to you and be present with you. You know what that feels like, right? It feels amazing. Absolutely feels amazing. And so as a leader, make sure that you're able to give that to the people that you work with. Great point, Jeremy. Thank you. So some good points there. I think this is part of what, what's going on with my throat here. I think this is part of what Joy was getting at, but validation is a word that really is important to me. It's, I think we always have to validate our people, and it's not, not in an inauthentic way, and not every 5 minutes, but people need to know that what they're doing has an impact on someone. And validation is good. I mean, you know how kids are. They're out looking for that validation every 8 seconds. We don't need to do that. But certainly we need to thank people for what they do, honor them for what they do, celebrate them for what they do, and that will keep them going. So Victor says, actions speak louder than words. Even if we share our passion and fire with others, it can ignite a spark with them. So absolutely. That's what motivational speakers do, right, Victor? You get up there, you tell your story about something that you've achieved, something that you've done, something that's happened to you, and other people who are in a similar situation, and you go, whoa, if he can do it, why can't I? And that ignites the fire. Very cool. And Paula says, I didn't think I did inspire others, but lately more and more people have been sharing with me that by noticing and encouraging their authenticity and vulnerability, I have inspired them. So there, you have. And like I said before, sometimes we don't know what kind of impact our actions will have on other people, right? We just don't know. So we keep, if we keep on acting in an honorable way, an authentic way, doing what we love to do, trying to make a change in the world, people will notice. And they will be inspired by you. The other part, which I think is part of what a number of you have said, is this empowerment part. We need, a lot of leaders take power away from their people because, this whole notion of, well, I ask someone to do something, they micromanage that person. They usually micromanage that person because they think they can do it in a better way, or it's not getting done as quick as they want it to, or whatever the reasons that they micromanage are. And that disengages, disempowers people. And that's where, in every organization that I've gone in to be a consultant, that's where things go wrong. where management disengages and disempowers their people. And they often do it by not letting them be who they are, not running with their ideas, not listening to their ideas, listening to their input. So I think it's really, really important that we empower, validate, inspire other people in that way. All right. I just want to, anybody who just popped in at the end here, this is Leadership 2020. I'm your host, Herky Cutler. This is going to be a regular series every Tuesday, 10 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. And we're going to explore these areas of leadership like we did today in terms of finding your fire. Some incredible comments, awesome comments. And I'm going to choose in a couple of minutes here, I'm going to choose two of them. And I'm going to have a special gift for those people. And I just want to make mention that our next episode next week is going to be Lead with Purpose. So we're going to talk about what is purpose and how does one find their purpose, just like how does one find their fire? How does one find their purpose in life? How does purpose impact the way you lead, or lack of purpose impact the way you lead? And how does purpose manifest in your leadership or not? So we're going to spend some time talking about purpose. Some other episodes that we're going to have, new tools for changing times. I think that's pretty important since this COVID thing isn't going to go away for a while. And also from ordinary to extraordinary. How do you take leadership that would be considered ordinary and make it extraordinary? So those are some upcoming episodes. Again, please, I want to encourage you to like my Facebook page, Leadership 2020, hosted by Herky Cutler. That's the name of the page. And if you want to subscribe to my YouTube channel, that would be awesome. This is a video. I will post it after the show. And so if some colleagues or friends of yours if you think this would be a good thing for them to watch, please share it with them. That would be awesome. I'm glad I was finally able to get through my first live streaming show. I think that's pretty cool. I'm excited about that, and I'm looking for these to get bigger and better as we go along. So I'm now going to announce the two winners, and this is like, this is after huge amount of time judging who they are. So the two winners are, this is going to be University of Victoria. Joy Andrews and Jeremy are going to be Jeremy Darwin Pierce. You're going to be the two winners. And for one of you, I'm going to send you a PDF copy of my book on leadership that you probably don't have. I don't know if you can see this backwards or forwards in the camera. And for the other one of you, so Joy, this is going to go to you, and Jeremy, for you, I am going to give you a free half-hour coaching session on anything that you want. So we'll be in touch after this. Please find me, or I'll find you somehow. But thank you all for being here. Thanks for participating. And I really look forward to seeing you next week. Until then, have a fantastic day and stay safe out there. Take good care.
You feel your belly aching and you really love the sound of that good old rock and roll. It'll make your jelly roll. There ain't nothing that sounds so sweet.